Oh boy, it's going to be one of those days. It's the hump day of the week where David and I welcome you to the Rant Network, where it's bold ideas meet unfiltered truths. As we dive into this headfirst into issues that matter, current events, pop culture, politics, and quirks of modern life. No topics too big, no opinion too bold. Buckle up for a candid rant, lively debates, and conversation that will spark, hopefully, a new perspective. This is the Rant Network, and your voice and your vibe has no limit. You know, people talk about anti-Semitism as being a modern era, maybe post-World War II. David in the green room, you're 100% right. This is pre-first century, then medieval, then early modern period, then period of early 19th to 20th century. But the breaking ground of the modern definition of anti-Semitism really stems from the Nazi anti-Semitism, which I believe and have spoken to in the past, we've ranted, ties directly to Yasser Arafat and the current regime from the river to the sea as an extension of that 1930 meeting that took place. When education systems that are receiving public funding are fighting with the government over their funding and not trying to resolve what would significantly be a problem. If I was running around a campus calling you a kike, you should all die, you should all burn, the Germans didn't get it right, we'll get it right, versus nigger, 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 man, would you find your black eyes beaten up and probably ridiculed in the papers? There's two standards, it seems, that hasn't seemed to change at all. I am utterly disgusted with Harvard, and I offer any of our friends, any of our colleagues that have Harvard chairs, I will for free create a bonfire with that chair and burn it to the ground. Because that Harvard chair is worth nothing but ash. Because the school is burning up in front of our eyes. The Ivy League gem is now the most tarnished stone in the world. David, what do you got to say?
Stuart, the purpose of this rant today, and notice the solemnity a little bit of our tone, is that we're today at Holocaust Memorial Day, Yom HaShoah, the official day of where Jews around the world and people around the world sit back and try to recall the horrors of World War II, which millions perished unnecessarily at the hands of the Nazis, the most being the Jews at 6 million. But he took out those that were mentally handicapped, physically handicapped, members of the LGBTQ community, and others. Anybody who was politically against Hitler. But his goal was to create Judenreich, meaning elimination of Jews. That was his goal, him and the Nazi Party. And what Stuart just said is that people didn't finish the job, and Hitler should have finished the job. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the modern version of Nazism, of what's happening. United Nations earlier this week had their own commemoration of Holocaust Remembrance Day, conveniently ignoring and omitting Israel. It doesn't happen, but that's the United Nations. Erasing Jews, erasing Israel. Now you're going to say, but they commemorated the Holocaust. Please note what I just said. The Holocaust was more than just Jews. And the United Nations, for its its broader, ridiculous agenda, is all about erasing real history. Stuart, in August of 2023, my wife and I walked through several camps in Poland. Auschwitz, Majdanek. We also went to a forest, Stuart, in which children, over 1,000 children, are buried in a mass grave. And that's where the Nazis shot them. Children. And we went to another forest in which they gathered thousands of other Jews from a local village and slaughtered them too. It wasn't just in the camps. The indiscriminate killing was unbelievable. And I'm bringing this up is because the world stayed silent. It was World War II. Roosevelt had to fight a war, not to save Jews. That was his comment. That was the war cabinet. In Canada, same thing. Mackenzie King, the prime minister, famously said, one Jew is one Jew too many. This was the attitude, as Stuart pointed out, in the 1930s. But here we are some 90-odd years later, and the voices are similar, eerily similar. We don't want Jews in America now. This is the new mantra. And you're saying, no, that's not what's happening. You're not hearing that from the leadership, but you are. Because you allowed the AOCs and the Ilhan Omars and the Rashida Tlaibs to make those kinds of remarks. You've allowed it. You've allowed the media to paint a dirty picture. You've allowed that. And your universities, starting with Poison Ivy Harvard, they're the kingpin, them in Columbia, the kingpins of staunch anti-Semitism on campus. Udine, get rid of Jews. That is what they permitted on campus. And the response by Harvard Stewart, which was beyond disgusting, is as Donald Trump says, you're guilty of how your stance towards Israel, you're guilty of your stance towards Jewish students and other students who support Israel, was to freeze $2.2 billion in federal grants. And the response by Harvard was countersue. Not fix, not admit they're wrong, countersue.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Udine Part 2.
But David, I want to just jump in on here. I want to read to you, and I want you to pay attention. History, and the term history repeats itself, seems like a cliche. In 1933, there was a boycott of Jewish businesses. 1935, Jews were stripped of their citizenship, banned intermarriages with non-Jews. 400 decrees and regulations to marginalize Jews. Then there was an economic persecution. Jewish property was transferred, stolen. And then there was a night across Germany called Kristallnacht, where they burned the homes and destroyed. Now, I can replace almost all of this with the Democratic Party. I can replace all of this with the Tlaibs, the AOCs, the Schumers even. It is absolutely eerily mirrored of the 1930, 1939, which began our current war that we call World War II. It is eerily similar. And yet, you're right. The people that call themselves academics at Harvard are the Nazis of the 1930s today. 100% want to strip. You know what, Jew? You don't have to go to class. Don't come here. You don't deserve to go to class. You're a second class. I'm sorry. And you know what? Like, I started this rant, which you looked somewhat appalled with, but I needed to say this. If I replace the Jewish student with a black student, you would claim we're back in the 1960s. This is eerily like you're in the 1930s. But the Democratic Party seems to want to say this is okay, this is good. It's not just the AOCs and Rashida Tlaibs and the Schumers and the Pelosi's, because they're all complicit standing by, or the Bernie Sanders. It's the Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It's all of them. It's all of them, David, because none of them have been an outspoken arm against this insanity. And as far as I'm concerned, why did World War II spiral out of control? Is because no one had the fortitude to stand up and say, this is just fucked up, David.
Oh, well, look.
That's where this is eerily a Democratic Party that is causing this.
You know, I know you like to blame the Democratic Party for this, but it's
I do.
It's beyond the Democratic Party, Stuart. And by the way, the Democratic Party hasn't really, like, people forget that the Southern Democrats, how they were and whatever. The racism is still running deep. Jew hatred hasn't changed, you know. But let's get real here, Stuart. It goes beyond that, because when you see it in the universities, and you see it in the United Nations, and I'll give you an example of how the United Nations is erasing history, Stuart. There is an exhibit in the United Nations, and of course, where is it placed next to? The UN and the question of Palestine. All right, let's tie in, Stuart, this conversation. All right, it's all about trying to create this anti-Jewish sentiment. There are a lot of famous photos that would have been placed around in the exhibit that talks about that just really shows the depths of what the Nazis did. And the United Nations removed these images. Too harsh? No. Because it's the reality. And they want to get rid of history, piece by piece. They replace slideshows that include dozens of happy faces doing ordinary things before, during, and after the war. No crematoria, no open pits of death, no humans cataloged by number tattoos, no emaciated Jews. Basically, you are changing the tone of the Holocaust. And the title currently exhibit reads like this: a warning to all people of the dangers of hatred, bigotry, racism, and prejudice. The same thing that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres opened his International Day to remember, commemorating the Holocaust by talking about anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim bigotry at the same time. This is what the world does now. This is what you are seeing. And the word Holocaust has been properly defined. We know what has happened has been properly been cataloged. It's not being taught in schools anymore, Stuart. It's not on the lips of people. It's gone. It's erased conveniently. Now you blame the Democrats, and the Democrats are complicit with a series of other players involved, which includes your educational system, which includes the media, okay, which includes entertainers, which includes, Stuart, we ranted about this, a while back, and I know people are going to go, this is a cockeyed way of looking at it, but Hollywood, if you wanted to have, you talk about, cultural appropriation, Jews are being portrayed by non-Jews in Hollywood, and that's okay, but don't do that to somebody else. You have yourself these little pieces here and there. Isolated, you might say, not a big deal. But together, it stinks. And the world needs to understand, when you have a president like Donald Trump, call him crazy, eccentric, whatever, and he's calling out all these institutions, including your friend Chuck Schumer, whom he has called a Palestinian, including other Jews who you can't understand why they're standing with the Democratic Party, that they decided the Democratic Party is more important than their identity and the safety of their citizens. It's amazing, because what people didn't realize is that while Hitler started with the Jews, where did he end, Stuart? With the world. He went after everybody. The Jew was always the guinea pig to start. And then it goes after everybody else. So on this Holocaust Memorial Day, as I recall, standing with a then 97-year-old Holocaust survivor, a survivor of 6 camps, Yosef Lefkovich, may he rest in peace, passed away late last year. He stood there and he said, "You have no idea the depths of the hate." And he goes, "It stinks today." This was August 2023, before the October 7th attack. He warned us. It stinks out there. We need to do something. Well, if we don't do something, their memory will go in vain.
Yep. David, let's take a second here take a moment to honor those that perished and died. Yom Yeshua. And that's a wrap for this episode. A huge thanks for tuning in and fueling these bold conversations. Your energy keeps this community thriving. Catch us every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, noon Eastern, for a more unfiltered take. Connect with us social media, drop your thoughts, pitch your topics. We're here to tackle them all. Until next time, keep the passions high, the ideas sharp, and the rants real. See you soon.